welcome to the Huron Valley School District Candidate Forum. My name is Jim Stevenson, publisher and owner of the Spire County News Weekly, and we are privileged to be hosting, along with the Huron Valley Optimist Club, this evening's informational forum so that you can get to know the candidates that are running for 3 6-year terms and 1 2-year term. So beginning this evening, we are going to ask each one of these candidates to answer questions from the Spinal Column News Weekly content team, Nancy Brandstatter, who leads our content team for the Highland edition, and Cindy Dubin, who leads our content team for the White Lake edition, both part of the Huron Valley School District. Tonight's candidates will be answering 4 questions from our team, as well as additional questions that have been submitted by a student, a teacher, and 2 parents. And hopefully we can get to all of those this evening. So some ground rules, ladies and gentlemen, okay? You will have 90 seconds to answer each question. At 70 seconds, you will see a piece of paper in the audience that will, a yellow piece of paper that will indicate that you have 20 seconds left. With 5 seconds left, you will see a reddish piece of paper that will say, please wrap it up. Please be respectful to the person next to you and to all the other candidates so that they have their allotted time as well. We will start the first question this evening on the far end, Mrs. Cotter, and the second question and the third question to the third person on down the line. Amy Grzykowski, who is currently a school board member, is not able to be with us here this evening. She received these questions earlier today and was given an opportunity to write written responses, which I will read, as opposed to getting into audio and visual, because we want it to continue to go smooth. And we are hopeful this evening that the audience, please refrain from clapping or hooting or hollering. Please be respectful of the time and the responses of each of these candidates who have taken their time to be here this evening and who have the interest of the Huron Valley School District in mind and believe they can contribute to the Huron Valley Board of Education. We will begin this evening with questions from, again, with Nancy and Cindy. If for some reason you feel like you need to respond a rebuttal to one person, to somebody else, of a comment that somebody has made, you can do that, but that will be out of your 90 seconds for your next question so that we may continue to move forward. Are there any questions? Hopefully that's clear as can be. All right. I turn it now over to Nancy and Cindy, and take it away, Nancy.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Let me start with the very first question, and it is about money. All right, so it is the law in the state of Michigan for school districts to establish and approve a balanced budget each year. And of course, many people, administrators, parents, outside entities, will propose items that are needed or wanted but are not attainable due to funding. So here's the question. Are you committed to ensuring a balanced budget each year for Huron Valley schools? Additionally, what financial experience do you have that would be an asset to the Board of Education. And Lindsay Cotter, we'll start with you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Spinal Column and our Huron Valley Optimists for putting this on tonight. And I'm giving you that out of my 90 seconds. In regards to the question regarding budget, I'd like to address the second part first about my experience here in Huron Valley regarding budgets. As a teacher, I wanted the whole budget in my classroom. As an administrator, I wanted the budget for my building. But as a board member now, I want the budget to be dispersed evenly amongst all of our students and all of our buildings. That's the experience that I bring to the board. The other part regarding the original part of the question regarding a balanced budget, by law, we're obligated to have a balanced budget by June 30th, I believe is the date. And we've worked together as a board over the years to take the monies that we are given and direct them to programs for our students. The fact that somebody may want a new gym at their high school, that's a nice want, but as a board, we need to have a balanced budget, and we look to using the monies that we get from our state to be sure that it is divided equally amongst our programming so all students can learn in Huron Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm definitely committed to ensuring we maintain a balanced budget as it is mandated by the state and it's a law. My experience that I bring to the table would align with when I was active duty military. I managed several budgets for different divisions where I was the leading officer for those departments. So I was tasked with maintaining the budget, ensuring that it was properly dispersed, and handling of the records. And then at the end of the year, you run into those, we have a bunch of money to spend, so we would properly allot that. And I think that's similar to what you'd see in the school. Right now, I know we're experiencing some difficulties or challenges with learning loss, so I'd like to see maybe a little bit more of the budget go towards that aspect. But wanting something and it actually happening are two different things as I'm learning. So definitely working with the board and with the administrative staff and the teachers to ensure everybody has what they need to allow us to excel at all aspects of our education.
Brian?
Point of order, is there a way to turn up the volume? We're working on it. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Is that better? Sounds pretty loud now. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, when it comes to am I committed to maintaining a balanced budget? I mean, the answer is yes. It's in the law. We've done it in the past. There's no reason we shouldn't do it going forward. So now we're in a good position as a school in some ways because we've recently had our per pupil funding raised by a significant amount from the state, and thanks to the generosity of all of you here, we have the money from the bond fund that takes pressure off of our operating expenses, which, before the bond fund, we had to take operating money to pay for things like repairs to schools. Well, we don't have to do that now. So as far as the budget's concerned, I think we're in a better position as a district than we have been in quite some time. And that will give us some flexibility to maybe introduce some programs or do some things that we haven't been able to do in the past. Now, as far as my experience is concerned, I have, over the course of the last 10 or 15 years, started businesses. I've run businesses, run departments in businesses. I've started nonprofits. So I have a lot of experience looking at a budget and making kind of tough, data-driven decisions about what money goes where and for what purpose. And so that is, I look forward to bringing those skills to bear as we use some of this new state money to make sure it is going towards, kind of as Jacob mentioned, learning loss with students over the pandemic. I mean, that's got to be one of our top priorities.
All right. Hopefully I can be heard. I'm a little upset that Ryan beat me to the bond fund, but anyway, of course I am committed to a balanced budget. I think that it's important to be responsible when it comes to that, and we have a bond fund, or we can go in for additional money in the future if there is some need for wants. But as far as it comes to balancing the budget for our school district, it has to be balanced, and it needs to be prioritized with education, teacher support, things that we need to do to address maybe the last 2 years of kids being in virtual or in and out of school in a hybrid situation. Personally, I manage a group for my job, and I have to deal with budgets and salaries and things like that. I've never been a huge fan of use it or lose it budgets. I think that there's a good way to plan ahead of time and to allocate the available resources correctly so that we can benefit those in need most. And I think from my personal job of managing my group budget, dealing with customers and dealing with their budgets as well, I think I understand the difference between needs and wants, and I understand that sometimes you can't have everything, but you need to make sure you take care of what's important first.
Hi, I'm Denise Forrest, and yes, of course, I do agree with the fact that we must ballot our budget annually. Sometimes that's a little tricky though, because the state of Michigan oftentimes does not pass their school aid budget when we're working on our budget, for the subsequent year. So we, use our best data and our best practices to work on our budget for the following year. Huron Valley Schools spends approximately 85% of our general fund budget on staff, on hiring staff and paying their salaries and their benefits. And our budget annually is about $117 million investment. So we are fiscally responsible with our dollars. And of course, I would love to hire more teachers and more paraprofessionals for our students, especially, after 2 years of getting through COVID, we have some special needs for all of our students. So that has to be reflected, though, in the bottom line. And I do have experience with budgets as a teacher in Huron Valley Schools. I was an art teacher, and oftentimes we didn't have budgets for certain things, so we found creative ways for that. So I was also a negotiator, so I know very intimately how funding works and how funding works in Huron Valley Schools.
Debbie, how would you answer that question?
I would say that, of course, I am committed to a balanced budget. I understand that the school board would be a group of people working together on that, along with other parts and people and groups, but committed to that, of course, balancing that budget. I know that there are non-negotiables. Denise spoke to, others have spoken to. There are non-negotiables in that salary and building operating expenses. So I understand that that's part of it. As for experience, I manage presently a lots of fidgets. I need a fidget. 6-figure budget at my church. And we have stayed consistently in the black when many other organizations are not. So I understand how running a budget and planning one works.
Carol?
First of all, thank you for hosting this, Jim, and the Optimist Club, and everyone that's attending here tonight. I really don't have any experience lately in managing a budget. I am familiar, though, with people's wants, needs, and likes and dislikes with the job that I currently do. I am an instructional designer, so I have people asking me for all kinds of things that sometimes is just nice to have or a little bit of fluff that I can't actually provide them. It's important that the information or the training that they get or education that I create focuses on a specific thing. That leads me to the fact that I am, a long time ago, post-board member, pre-board member, and I'm quite familiar with working with the budget in the school district. So we spent a few sleepless nights trying to figure out what was the best for our community and our schools. And like the rest of the panel here, because it's state law, it's important that we do balance our budget and always submit a balanced budget to the state. And sometimes it's really hard, as Denise noted, sometimes we don't even know what money we're going to get from the state in order to make that decision. So we spend time trying to figure out how we're going to do this with the data that's provided to us. And of course, our teachers and students are the most important thing that we all work for and put effort to into making sure that they get the adequate learning.
Joe?
Thank you so much. Hopefully you guys can hear me, or you can hear that. So good evening, I'm Joseph Milchowski. I'm running for the school board, as you know. And to answer the budget question, I'm going to steal a little bit from Lindsay's play here. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience first. Right now, I am a principal consultant at one of the largest IT companies in the world. I work with billion-dollar companies on multi-million-dollar projects that last multiple years. When I'm working with these clients, understanding their budget is imperative. And just as a requirement of the law here, the budget drives what we can deliver. And we need to make sure that fiscal responsibility is a clarity that we can all have. It's not just about the board understanding it. It's also about our educators understanding the dollars we have. It's about the superintendent working with the dollars he or she has. And it's with the community understanding exactly where the budget is. And that's something I think we're missing right now. When I decided to run for this position, I felt it was very difficult.
What's
I think we have an opportunity to make it easier for everybody who's watching and who's here in attendance today. The budget needs to be driven by the community, and we need to be the voice of that budget and make sure it's balanced and ensure that all of our students are getting exactly what they need to be successful today and tomorrow.
Two more. Michelle?
All right. Hi, good evening. Thank you for hosting this. And I also want to take a word from Joy from Barn 45 and say you guys have so many other things you could be doing tonight. So we all appreciate you being here to listen to what we all have to say. I am committed to a balanced budget. My experience, I am an estimator for one of the largest commercial construction companies in Michigan. I worked there for almost 23 years. I'm an estimator and purchaser, so I think that qualifies me very well to understand the budget, watch how the budget's going, make sure it stays balanced, just understanding the dollars that are involved.
Becky?
Hi, I'm Becky Zimmerman, and this is a whole lot different than speaking up in front of a classroom full of high schoolers. I'm just gonna say that. I'm a former math teacher here within Huron Valley, and numbers are in my blood. They drive my world. So first I wanna say that I would, for the balanced budget, rely on the resources that were provided as the school board. We have district accounting, we have superintendent recommendations, and stakeholders input, which is all of you. And those decisions and those inputs should help what we are putting into it. As far as my experience and my background, I ran a small business, Miss V's Dance, and I partnered with Huron Valley Rec for the past 10 years. I was nonprofit, so I worked off of just what we had. I was right here in our community. Today, I am working for one of the largest publishing houses, doing textbooks for colleges around and working on getting costs for them that are sustainable for their students.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to our next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Amy is not here this evening, and I should have picked up on that. So thank you. Amy's response to the financial question is: the board holds the fiduciary duty of the budget. We are the guardians, and therefore I support a balanced budget. The budget is comprised of three components: revenue, expenses, and priorities. Revenues are finite, expenses can be infinite, and the balanced budget all comes down to how funding is allocated to reflect the priorities of the district. I believe we must prioritize classroom and staff. Education is in the people business. Unlike other organizations, schools have a unique set of budget restrictions, parameters. Districts cannot go out for loans or raise prices to adjust for inflation or low enrollment. Quarterly, the budget is amended to reflect the actual expenditures, not just predicted expenses. Audits must be performed annually, and the revenue line item is established by the State of Michigan legislative branch and governor. A balanced budget is fiscally responsible, but not always popular. The board must make tough decisions based on a clear vision for the district. As a marketer, I understand the importance of vision. However, vision without communication leads to misunderstanding and mistrust. Amy continues by saying, my role at the West Oakland Transportation Authority also covers working with the budget, which has the same constraints as the district. Although significantly smaller, the decision-making is still not easy. Staffing, compensation, inflation impact, and expenses all come into play. And my experience with WODA allows me to see both sides of the issues. Okay, thank you very much for picking that up. We also, one of the candidates this evening, Shannon Pickering, was not able to be with us this evening due to a family health issue, and we wish her the best. All right, let's move on to the second question from Cindy Dubin of our spinal column staff. Cindy?
Thank you all for being here. So the next question has to do with declining enrollment. Schools across the country have seen a steady decline in student enrollment for the past few years, and this is projected to continue. We're seeing some of that in Huron Valley, much of this being attributed to lower birth rates, rise in charter schools, homeschooling, and parents taking their children out of public schools because of policies with which they don't agree. At some point, the only fiscally responsible decision may be to consolidate through school closings. Now, the question is, are you prepared to make these difficult decisions to avoid ending up with a deficit, regardless of the negative pushback from parents in the affected areas? And Jacob, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. Yeah, the loss of students to our district has significantly impacted us over the last 2 years especially. We have seen a greater decline than the previous trajectory. The funding we've lost is almost equivalent to $7.5 million annually in our budget from loss of students. So these decisions are going to have to be made if corrections aren't made. And my goal would be to get enrollment to take an upturn instead so we could avoid having to have any closures. However, that may not be possible, in which case then you have to make the decisions based upon all of the information with public input and teacher input. But I think we can avoid having to do any shutdown or closures if we change the direction of the school and the public starts to see our programs improve and they're happier with the decisions that are being made, then I think we'll start to boost enrollment again. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm actually a graduate of Huron Valley Schools. I graduated from Milford High in 2001, and I was actually in the very first play that was ever done in this theater. And so it's good to be back, but the reason I tell you that story is I remember when there were a lot more kids. I remember it well. And I actually went to 2 schools that we've closed and since bulldozed, and so I know how hard it is on a community when that happens. Every time I drive by where Baker Elementary is and I see all those houses packed close together, and I remember like where the tree was out front, I remember the time I spent on the playground, like it gets me right there, right? And so we have to be realistic about where we are as a district with our budget. And if we have to make tough decisions, we will. But one thing I will tell you, based on my experience with the real damage it does to a community to close a building, that I will fight like hell not to do that, okay? That said, the previous question was about fiscal responsibility, and we have to be fiscally responsible. And if it comes down to it, and that means we have to close the building and take that tough decision, I'm willing to take it. But boy, I don't want to. Now, what can we do to forestall that? We've had declining enrollment for a long time in this district, and it's primarily demographically driven. The pandemic didn't help. We need to look at what we can do to attract more school choice students and look at the school choice parents in our district and figure out how we can get them to stay in Huron Valley.
I'll echo some of Ryan's words. The declining enrollment in the past 2 years, you could attribute a lot of that to the pandemic and to people pulling their kids out or doing homeschooling, things like that. A decreasing birth rate is not something you're going to fix in any amount of time that's going to affect our enrollment rates. So what we have to do is try to drive excellence into our schools to promote ourselves to the school of choice people so that outside communities bring their kids here. Everyone's got a choice. A number of people taking their kids to private schools or charter schools or schools outside our district because they think it'll give their kids a better opportunity. So what can we do to focus on our teachers and our staff and our facilities to make us attractive to bring more people to us? I think that'll go a long way. It'll take investment and it'll take time, but it would help turn around where we are and help increase enrollment over time, which brings with it all the additional budget that goes along with a higher pupil count. That being said, if you've got to have a balanced budget, sometimes things have to change. And I think the important part would be to focus on areas that have the least impact, focus on schools that can be condensed, that are closest together, and try to do the least harm to our community as possible.
Thank you, Ben. Denise?
Yep, declining enrollment has been a problem in our district and in Michigan, not just this past few years during this awful pandemic, but previous for the last 10, 15 years. And it was kind of stated in 2008 that by 2018 we would start to pop up. And so now it's, in student enrollment. So now it's 2022. And that still hasn't happened. But I am happy that last year we attracted 917 students from other districts. So we're doing something right in Huron Valley schools. We need to continue to do things right. And one of them, concerning declining enrollment is right-sizing, our staff with the loss of students. And we do that every single year. And that is important because that does stave off closing schools. I worked with the Brooks Elementary staff as the EA president and parents and there when that school was closing. And it is very, very difficult to do. And we do want to try to avoid that at all measures. I think Proposal A is problematic. 25 years of Proposal A hasn't helped lift up our schools. Every student has a price on their head. When you have less students, you still need teachers to teach those kids. And so I'm really hoping our legislature works on figuring something else out rather than Proposal A.
Thank you for that perspective. Debbie?
So, national birth rates, just like has been said, are down. There's nothing we're going to do to fix that. Yet, in every corner of this district, you can drive by and see a new subdivision going in. And so that is a hopeful consideration to take in, that there are families and children still coming and seeking out the Huron Valley District. That ebb and flow it's not new. It was an ebb and flow when I was a kid and they were closing the school down the street. It just how it ends up. But I think that working through this, and if we were to have to meet up with something, communication between the school board, between the teachers, between the families that would be involved in any of that. That is one thing that, it's just vital.
Thank you. Carol? your perspective?
My perspective, I think the question is why do people take their kids out of public schools and move them to charter schools? Why do they take them out and put them in home schools? One reason they take them out of charter schools is because they figured charter school is going to give them the edge, the better piece. Most of those charter school teachers make $30,000 a year. They put all their money that they make into that classroom and they don't get anything back in return from the school, and nor do they get support. Public schools support their children, they support their staff, and that's how it should continue to be. It was the hardest thing in the world to do, to have to close a school and move people around from one area to another, in one school to another. You lose friends, you lose relationships with others, family members. The best thing to do is to communicate, to determine what it is that's driving these individuals away with their children into other areas and other schools, and try to create opportunities for those students so that parents will be more apt to send their students here instead of sending them to a charter or homeschool them.
Thank you very much. Joseph, it's a tough question. What is your input?
Yes, it's a tough follow-up to an already tougher question just before. So on the budget side and the closing school side, it's almost the same question. I'm not loving this.
Okay, well, I'm going to give him this mic.
Appreciate that, thank you. So these questions are the exact same question: is how do you deal with tough financial decisions? I think I could speak for everybody at this table that closing a school is the last possible thing any of us want to do. Speaking on behalf of Ryan, I also went to a Huron Valley school that does not exist today, and that was Highland Middle School. It was gut-wrenching to see that school go because my kids can't go there now. They're going to Spring Mills where I went, but they are not going to Highland Middle School. They're going to Oak Valley, which is another great school though. So making the point to everybody here on how your school finances are spent is the exact same messaging as the last question. It's understanding and comprehending how the budget dollars are spent and where we truly get our funding. And as we've heard this message along the table, it's from the students that are here. So if we have to figure out what the gap is, figure out the students that aren't here and try to attract them with, not incentives, but with a productive and really reflective environment that allows them to be successful. And that's exactly what the charter schools are promising, but they have no requirement to deliver it. Here we have a requirement to deliver it, and we promise to do it every day. Great, thank you. Michelle,
Yep.
Hopefully your mic works well, and so go ahead.
I hope so, because that was scary.
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I am prepared and committed to make those difficult decisions. I hope we don't get in that situation. What I want to understand is, why are we losing families? Why are we losing students? I think that it would be nice to do something similar to an exit interview when people leave a job, to understand why these families are taking their kids out of our district, take that information and help fix it and correct it so we draw more students and families to the district.
Thank you. Becky?
I am also willing to and dedicated to making those hard decisions. No one wants to do it, as we've all said. I would work with the superintendent, the board, and every other stakeholder to figure out the best solution and the best ways to do so. In the meantime, though, we do need to find ways to retain and attract new students. First of all, I think that we did a good job starting the HVVA and trying that route. We also have another good attractor here in our district with the IA West, which brings students from other areas. But we need to also retain good teachers that promote that community feel. Keeping these teachers in our district that, you know, like you were saying, like your kids can go to that teacher and see them. Working on advanced programming at the lower levels. We don't have anything for advanced students in elementary, some middle school. We do have in the high school, but working on those things, these are why a lot of families are leaving, especially at the lower level. We don't have the programs available that we could. And we could figure out ways to do that, reallocating staff and working on some things. Increasing programs for special needs students, attracting that population, and other underprivileged ethnic groups would also be a great attractor to our community.
Thank you. And Amy Grzykowski's response. Declining enrollment is a real issue for our district. As numbers contract, tough decisions need to be made if we intend to pursue the priorities of funding classrooms and staff the way we need to. Anytime we talk about building utilization, it creates anxiety and fear. When we get into times where tough decisions must be made, communication and dialogue are essential. By providing insight into the decision-making process, supporting data, input from the community, and future projections, the board creates transparency and been fully vetted by all. No one person has all of the answers. Collaboration creates a sense of joint decision-making and helps alleviate some of those concerns. Beyond making tough decisions, Amy continues, she would like to see more collaboration with local townships to encourage more families to move into the district, developing strong ties with our local officials, working to create communication strategies to promote Huron Valley schools to builders, as well as creating a strong community communication plan to connect us where just some of the avenues that she suggests exploring to lessen the loss of students. All right.
Lindsay.
Oh, and we have Linda on the end. You get the last word.
Well, thank you very much. In regards to the latter part of the question, can I close a school building? And the answer is yes. My first job, my first decision that I had to make when I joined the board, I voted to close Baker School, which was my building. However, the monies we saved from that year we're continue to save every year. It's not a one-time shot, close a school, get the cash and you're gone, but it multiplies every year. Thus, we have had some other closing based on dropping of enrollment with our kids. And that's a nationwide problem with the lower birth rate. We're gonna continue to see it. Huron Valley will continue to lose students as we move forward. Likewise, last year in our budget, we estimated we would lose about 200 kids. But fortunately this year, we're really only close to 100 right now, but we'll know in a couple weeks when we take this October student head count for the state. The one thing that I do stand for is I want equity for all students. Every kid deserves in their building to have what others have. So that being said, Huron Valley has already started and we're moving forward into a strategic plan right now. And out of that plan, I hope to get some direction regarding, because we will be focusing on building utilization. So moving forward, I hope we have good things for Huron Valley.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. I'm going to turn it back over to Nancy and Cindy.
That was my mic. It fell off. Maybe it'll be steadier there. All right. We're changing topics here to a very important subject, school safety and security. I know it's on everyone's mind. During the past dozen years, there's been an uptick in shootings, security breaches, and violence in schools. The Huron Valley teachers and staff have recently been through violence training to protect themselves and their students. Through the funding raised in the 2020 Community Passed Bond, updated security measures in the buildings are now in place or will be soon implemented. The question: what policies or actions do you see necessary to ensure the safety of our students and staff? Is there more that can be done with local law enforcement assistance? And do you believe teachers and staff should be allowed to protect themselves? Ryan, I think we start with you.
All right. Ryan?
You guys gave me the hard one. Come on. Okay. Well, all right. So first of all, when it comes to safety in our schools, we mentioned the bond fund, and my oldest daughter goes to Heritage Elementary, and you can see the safety improvements to the physical security in the school when you drive by or walk in, right? So there's a lot, obviously, that can be done to improve physical security in our schools, and luckily, we're already doing a lot of that in Huron Valley. Now, I think it kind of branches beyond that, right? You can't turn a school into a fortress or a prison.
And so, we make them as physically secure as possible. But the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have the resources available in the school for struggling students, so that we have the psychologists, we have the counselors who can help struggling students and also identify when an intervention is necessary. You mentioned, the uptick in school shootings. I mean, most commonly, especially in the older age brackets in high school, it's a student who attends the school, right? So we need to be able to identify and help these kids early to prevent this sort of stuff from happening. Now, specifically around the issue of teachers being able to carry guns in schools, I would say that, I'm just opposed to that. I'm endorsed by our local teachers, and I've spoken to many of them, and the ones I've spoken to don't want to carry a gun in our classrooms. If we need to improve security in that way, we need to partner with local law enforcement and not expect our teachers to carry firearms.
Great.
We can't turn schools into prisons, first of all. I mean, you can be as safe as you want, but making something, turning a school into a prison is not going to be good for students' mental health or their outlook on life. I do not agree with arming every single teacher or arming students or arming any number of people that might be in there. There are other ways that you can ensure safety through communication and cooperation with local law enforcement. Other school districts have groups called things like the Watchdogs, something like that, where it's a group of volunteer fathers. They go through training. They patrol schools, or they are around outside of schools just to keep an eye on things. There is community outreach that we can do to get the people we need that are also, parents, the people in our community that are as committed to school safety as much as we are. And even if they don't have a student in that particular school, we can reach out to them. We can see who is available to help us with this. Arming teachers is not the answer. And I have never spoken to a teacher that thought it was a good idea. I guess it needs to start with teachers being able to identify issues that kids have, and schools having the support that they need in order to address those issues. We need to address emotional health and well-being in order to help the situation that affects our entire country right now.
Yep. We passed a bond, thank you community, in 2019 after 2 previous failed bonds, and 30 million of those bond funds are going to harden our schools, build safe and secure entrances into all of our schools, replace doors, and we are going over that 30 million budget now, especially after the latest school shootings, to even go beyond what we've done. We have more doors. We have purchased night locks in all of our doors. We are hiring security for buildings. We are partnering very closely with our local law enforcement agencies, and it's really a beautiful thing. I've seen all the plans, and our local law enforcement are so tuned into our schools. They come into our schools some days when they don't even have to, so I'm really happy about that in our schools. And gone are the days, I was an art teacher, an elementary art teacher, and I was just loved having my doors open so people could go by and hear the joy of kids making art and talking to one another and enjoying themselves. We have to now take security very seriously, so all of our school doors will be locked. We also, besides having the physical infrastructure for our schools, we have to build a culture of security where these have to become rote practices now for our teachers to deal with. And it's unpleasant, but it has to be done. And I am opposed to having guns in schools other than our local law enforcement agencies and our security. They are trained and they are responsible. And they are the folks that need to protect us in our schools.
Debbie?
Sure. I believe that if all the parts of a safety protocol work together, then it's the right amount of safety for our children. If one part of it falls out, it doesn't work so well. I have prison written down. It's funny that we all refer to that in the same way. Our kids cannot be educated in a prison sort of system, but we live in such a far different world than most of us grew up in, and it's just different. And that means that we always have to just be mindful of every part. Mental health, the monies that go towards mental health professionals will come and alleviate some of that need for so much lockdown in that kind of situation. I also think that we have a very positive relationship right now with the Oakland County Sheriffs and with White Lake Police Department, and maybe continuing that, maybe growing on that a little bit more, so there's more of a presence in there, would make it a little less prison-like for the kids. And as for guns, for teachers having guns, while I am a proponent of people being able to have a gun, I'm not sure there are teachers that really want to be armed in a classroom.
Carol?
Wow. Well, for first and foremost, I'm not for teachers being armed in a classroom. I've never been for that. As a former teacher, I'd give my life for your kid, but I'm not going to carry a gun to protect them because that's not my job. As a teacher, I'm there to teach and to educate your children. They're the future leaders of this world. It should be up to the police department, the sheriff's department, to be the ones that provide that security. The other things we could do as a school district is provide counselors that are out in the public, in those school classrooms, in the cafeteria, in the hallways, where they're actually interacting with your children. And they get to know them so that there's someone else that they can turn to besides their teacher. The other people that they can turn to, and no one's mentioned that, is you guys. You are the ones that see your kids more than we do, or that the teacher does. You need to be aware of what your children are doing. Do you know that on TikTok, and I don't know if anybody knows this, you might know this, on TikTok, there's a request that people call in bomb threats. A friend of mine who lives in North Carolina has picked her son up from high school 4 times this week because of that. Another TikTok challenge was to slap a teacher. Who does that? As parents, I'm responsible for my child. Not just being a teacher, being responsible for my child, but as a parent, I am too.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Joseph, it's a tough question.
Yes, it is. Hopefully this is working.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Thank you. So the very first part of this question that's important, I think, for all of us to acknowledge is the should teachers be armed? And I feel very strongly that that's a big fat no. More guns doesn't stop guns. It just isn't how gun economy works. I have a gun. I was raised by a father who was a police officer. So I have a strong respect and understanding for what gun safety actually is. But I also have a strong understanding of where gun violence actually comes from. And that kind of behavior comes from, as you were hinting at, it's something that's missed. And it's our forgotten kids. It's our kids who are bullied and misunderstood and misrepresented in public and not really fought for. And that's something that we as a community need to do, is stand up for those kids and stand up for every single one of them, and to make sure that the schools are safe, not just as an entrance, because the new entrance to Spring Mills is gorgeous. It's safe, but it's not as secure as it even can be now. It's only a step in the right direction, and we need to keep going in the right direction. Keep investing until we say, have we spent enough? And the answer is yes, because the schools are finally safe, and we partner with our local law enforcement. We absolutely do that, but that doesn't address the core issue. That is a defense mechanism, not a deterrent. And I believe we should work on deterring the violence in the first place.
Michelle?
All right. Speaking as a potential school board member, I think questions about school safety are best handled by the professionals trained to research, consult, and implement the solutions. I feel the way the district is currently handled, the The safety training has been a bit irresponsible. They've relied on untrained PR people to conduct the safety training, not professionals. They have done a safety study. To my knowledge, the results haven't been issued yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing those when they come out. As a parent, I feel there is a balance between enough security to make our kids feel safe, but not so much that, like everyone else is saying, that the schools turn into a prison. Our kids' education, we don't want their education to be impeded, but we want them to be safe. I think we need to do a better job of who enters our buildings. I go in, I show my ID, and the door gets opened. Well, why am I there? No one's ever asked me. It's scary. So anyone can just go up, show their ID, they're in the door. That concerns me. And then I think that I'm really happy to see those night locks are being installed. And I think the idea of an armed guard at each school is a really good starting point.
Becky, your response to the question?
I was there in a room full of 11th graders at Lakeland when we heard news of Oxford. I stopped class to discuss and to mitigate fears. I was there with my colleague teacher crying during prep time the next day because of the extreme weight and pressure of being put on teachers to keep everyone safe while our kids were with someone else during the days. I understand firsthand the weight of this topic. I've done this teacher safety trainings, but it is a fine line. Just as everyone said, we do have some great partnerships with the local law enforcement. Lakeland has Officer Snow. Everyone knows Officer Snow. And it is a great thing that we can expand on. As far as us arming teachers, from my experience sitting in a room full of teachers during teacher training, we didn't want it. We don't want that responsibility. We don't want the liability of having guns on us or them being mishandled by someone else. It is a scary thing. But first and foremost, we need to find the root causes of what is happening and stop sticking Band-Aids on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Grzykowski's response. School safety and security almost always comes down to behaviors. In the last 7+ years, Huron Valley schools have put in place procedures and policies to keep our kids safe. As technology has improved, so has our security. The bond and sinking fund renewals gave the district funding to make major upgrades, secure entryways, consistent door locking mechanisms, more and better cameras, night lock systems, and a lot more. However, a lock only works when a person uses it. Cameras are only effective if someone is watching. Doors are only secure when they are closed and locked. Behavior is the one thing we cannot always control. Therefore, training is the most important aspect of safety and security. It is critical to creating a muscle memory response where safety protocols are second nature and part of everyday classroom practices. Training on a micro level by class, as well as training at a micro level or macro level by school. The Huron Valley School District has developed relationships with all the police departments, Oakland County Sheriffs, Milford, White Lake Township, and we must continuously engage these resources. Amy continues by saying they are not only partners when the district is facing difficult situations, but they are available to provide training and assistance before huge problems arise. Engaging and incorporating law enforcement into the fabric of our schools allows for relationships and trusts to form with the goal to deter behaviors that can create unsafe situations and conditions. Ms. Cotter?
Yes, thank you. Nancy, could I ask you to read the actual question?
Sure. The actual question after okay, what policies or actions do you see necessary to ensure the safety of our students and staff? Is there more that can be done with local law enforcement assistance? And do you believe teachers and staff should be allowed to protect themselves?
Thank you very much. I have to yield to Amy Grzymkowski's response because it was eloquent. And she really talked about what we're doing here in Huron Valley and how thankful we are for the bond and for all the improvements we made. The only thing I could add to that, and she talked about being ready and the training, we need to develop and continue to have a culture of safety in our district. Years ago when we started, we all got our little name tags. Everyone thought they were cute, but not everybody wore them. Today, you can't walk into a Huron Valley building unless someone has their name tag on. That's the beginning of building a culture. And this year, our teachers are also going to improve on, they need to keep their door locked. Now, this is something that they're going to learn. This is something they're going to practice, and this is something that will become part of the culture. That's how our teachers are going to protect our kids. We're going to develop a culture of safety, and they'll be able to protect the kids. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. School safety and the safety of our children is always at the forefront of every parent's mind, especially in today's society. I've seen some of the improvements that our district has made, and I feel like we're headed in the right direction in some respects. But I hear a lot of talk about teachers teachers or social workers having the relationships with students to kind of weed out the kids who might be headed in that direction to cause those issues. And I think it really starts at home more so. The parents need to take the full responsibility of their children. We're already putting so many asks on our teachers, and I've been hearing teachers don't want that responsibility of carrying a weapon. Well, but we want them to be the counselors, and we want them to be the mental health professionals. I think those are not their fields of expertise, and we shouldn't be requiring that either. However, if we have a teacher who, a retired police officer or retired military member who is comfortable with a weapon and they would like to carry a weapon, I think it makes more sense to allow that than to criminalize it, because criminals don't care if there's a school zone and they can't carry a weapon, obviously. So while you would never require it of anybody, I think it would be you should allow people to protect themselves if they're comfortable doing so.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We've been through 3 questions already. It's going perfectly from a time standpoint. So my kudos to all of you for staying on task with your response times. That's great. And I would like to thank everybody that is in attendance here this evening in person. There are over 100 of you in attendance tonight. So thank you very much. Give yourself a round of applause for making this as an important part of your evening. And to all of those that are watching this on YouTube being live streamed, thank you for tuning in and listening to what the candidates have to say. We've got one more question that we're going to ask, and then we will take after all the responses, we will take a 10-minute break after the responses to this question, and it will be 10 minutes. Okay? We will start back promptly 10 minutes after we break, and then we will get into teacher, student, and parent questions. So go ahead. Cindy, I think you have the next question, correct?
Yes, I do. And Ryan, don't feel bad because Ben's going to get to start with the tough question now, okay? In the current political climate, some schools across the country have felt the need, school boards across the country have felt the need to get involved in making operational decisions that principals, administrators, and school managers have typically made. These are hot buttons with some opposing views that are often demanding policy change and actions taken to satisfy outside interests. What role should Board of Education members play in choosing or banning certain literature? Or if you were to find out about curriculum related to critical race theory and gender identity, and how would you address parents who have concerns about these issues?
For once, I don't have Ryan to piggyback off of. So, I mean, if I had an hour, I wouldn't have enough time to answer a question like this.
No, you have 90 seconds. So. And this is not, and I don't make light of that. This is not a 90-second response type of answer, and I think we all know and appreciate that. But if you can do your best to at least give us your best response you can in the time allotted.
The school board should be coming up with kind of the structure and the framework of where they want the district to go. They should be working directly with the superintendent. They should be getting feedback from teachers and the community to understand where they need to steer things. That being said, we can't cater into individual students. We're not going to take Huron Valley into 8,000 classrooms of one because every single parent wants something different for their child. It's not going to work. School board should not step in hot button or political issues. The school board should be apolitical. It should be a voice of the community. Of course, the community you're in is going to be political, but your job is not to change individual schools and tell principals and teachers what to do. When it comes to banning books, it's wrong. It should never happen. When it comes to inclusiveness, we need to be more inclusive. We need to embrace the children that we've got, the pupils in our schools, kindergarten through high school. Make them feel like they belong, because they do. We should listen to kids. Do the kids want the books banned? Read that book and explain to me why it should be banned, and then maybe we'll talk about it. But until that happens, I am not interested in censorship. I'm not interested in excluding anyone, and I'm very passionate about that. And I could go on for a long time, but I think I'm done.
Thank you.
And I get to go next, yay. The operational running of a school district, the school board, really entrust the superintendent to hire personnel, and we have to trust that our superintendent, through his goals, through his district goals, through the goals of the other cabinet members, teaching, learning, technology, finance, marketing, am I forgetting one? We entrust those folks to work with our district as a whole. We have over 1,100 employees, and I think teachers want the respect of them being professionals. I think we have to give that latitude to them. You know, when I transitioned from a teacher to a school board member, I was very aware that there's lines that we don't want to cross. There's lines that we don't want to cross. We hire media techs. We have pilot programs before we select books, whether they're English language reading books, whether they're math books, whether they're social studies books, whether they're the arts curriculum. And so in my estimation, we have to trust the folks that are in front of your kids every day. And certainly we have to trust our parents. When they bring up an issue, we must listen to that issue. And I think that we're able to come together to solve those problems. But the board does not get into the day-to-day function of our school district. Our professionals do that.
Can I just ask to repeat the question one more time? It's kind of hard to hear you down here.
Yes.
Thank you.
What role should Board of Education members play in choosing or banning certain literature, or if you were to find out about curriculum related to critical race theory and gender identity, and how will you address parents who have concerns about these issues?
Okay, well, first, the addressing of parents with questions about that. I'm a believer in communication. I've said this before. I think that transparency and communication solves a lot of problems within a district. I also love what Ben said, and I completely believe that I need to stay in my lane when it comes to making these decisions. I think that we hire teachers and professionals for that purpose, librarians and teachers and people that run the classrooms and are on a day-to-day basis with all of these things. I believe completely in inclusivity, no matter who, what, where, or when with a child. So that's where I land.
Great. Very succinct answer. Thank you, Debbie. Carol?
For one, the school board is an apolitical place. We don't come in here with an agenda. If you're coming into the school board with an agenda, you're not going to solve your problems, and you're not going to get your agenda taken care of, because that's not our purpose. Our purpose is to make sure that we hire a superintendent, which one came in before when I was on the board before. And we have one Paul that's in the office now that seems like a great person. He was very He communicates really well, and I'm sure has the best interest of the district at heart, along with the school district. When we make decisions on policy. We may make decisions on curriculum that's presented to us, like Denise talked about. We look at the textbooks, but we don't make those decisions. We don't really get involved in the day-to-day function of the school. I don't tell the teacher how to teach any more than I come to your house and tell you how to parent. So that's not my role. My role is to make sure that the budget's balanced, the kids are safe, that the teachers have what they need, including pay, so that they're equal to what everyone else in Oakland County gets. And that's my role. It's not to come in with an agenda and do what I want to do or what I think I want to do.
Thank you. Joseph?
Thank you. So Ben, great job, by the way, getting that running with it. I love it. I'm going to take a note out of your book, and I'm not going to have any notes for that question because it's an important one. It shows how we think about actual real issues. Being on the board is a nonpartisan role, which means that you are apolitical, as we've already mentioned, but it also means that certain behaviors that are non-political come up and bubble up and are important to all of us. Human rights are not a political issue. So if we're talking about our LGBTQ students, we need to make sure that they're safe. This is not a thing that doesn't exist. They're here, and we need to address their safety and their satisfaction. We need to make sure that things like other learning methodologies that are appropriate at higher levels are kept where they're appropriate, because that's where the educators we trust put them. And that's the key here, is that we hire trusted educators. The board hires a superintendent. Our current superintendent is doing a fantastic job, and he then runs with it. And he hires educators that meet our minimum requirements of the community to ensure that their professionalism and expertise is reflected every day in the classroom. And that's where the circle of trust starts. We hire the superintendent on your behalf. He hires the team members, and then they execute based on the professional education that we all made sure that they had to have to walk in the door. And I have trouble understanding limiting our teachers' ability to teach, because that's what we hired them to do. Let's put a little trust in them and let them accomplish their goals.
Great. Thank you very much. Michelle?
Yep. I feel the board is responsible for setting the curriculum and the courses that are taught to our kids, and it's their job to ensure that that curriculum is followed through and taught correctly. If I were on the board, I also feel that it is the board's responsibility to listen to parents' concerns, to discuss them as a group, and make a decision that is in the best interest of the kids and their learning.
Okay. Becky, your turn.
Okay. I would like to first start by paraphrasing Dr. Salah at the last board meeting, where he said, Huron Valley Schools is in the business of teaching and learning. That being said, I'm going to bore you with board policies for a second. The board says, right out of the board handbook, we are to exceed all requirements of the state of Michigan for instructional programs, and our standards are based and founded upon legally compliant, research-based grade level learning and achievement standards that lead to the awarding of a school district diploma. That being said, those are our key focuses. It is important that we get stakeholder input on issues. We want your voices to be heard. We want our voices to be heard. But we need to keep in mind, as the board, we are here for the greater good of our students and the success of those students.
Great. We'll go all the way back down to the other end of the table.
Yes.
Lindsay?
Yes, thank you. Regarding what's the role of the Board of Education? The role of the board, actually, I have one employee right now, and it's Dr. Paul Salah. He's our superintendent, and the superintendent is the director of the district. So it is his duty then to work with complaints, concerns from parents and students. And we have a process in Huron Valley. Usually anyone that would have a concern, you'd probably start with your child's teacher. Then you'd go to your building principal. Following that, then the concern or the complaint might be sent up to central office, to the instruction department, finance department, whether it's another department that would be set up like HR. But then when it reaches there, then it gets filtered up to the superintendent. He's kept knowledgeable of everything that's going on. When it gets to a point, if there's another issue only then will it be brought to the board. And when it's brought to the board, it'll be discussed till the board reaches consensus. And again, maybe would have to change a policy. So that's my take, or that's my role in dealing with some concerns.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Jacob?
Thank you. So from the Huron Valley website, one of the responsibilities of a school board member is to represent the voting public in making decisions regarding school policies and education, as well as help establish goals and objectives of the district's educational program. So I do believe we have a responsibility to have a hand in the curriculum. And along with that, I believe we asked about the political climate and the questions. There are certain things that need to be addressed if they are in the school system. For instance, we discussed the, you said CRT, gender identity, books. I don't believe in banning books either, but it's just like a rating system on movies. Are we gonna say, we're not banning a movie because we're not letting a child under 17 watch rated R? There are age appropriate things. And if you've been online or watched the news in the last year, you'll see all of the information that many teachers and libraries are allowing the children to read. It's not appropriate for their age. So yeah, we need to trust our superintendent, but we need to verify that they're actually doing what they're supposed to be. The rights and parents of legal guardians in Michigan. It is a natural fundamental right of parents and legal guardians to determine and direct the care, teaching, and education of their children. The public schools of the state serve the needs of the pupils by cooperating with the pupils' parents and legal guardians to develop the pupils' intellectual capabilities and vocational skills in safe and positive environment.
Ryan?
Yeah,
You have the last word here.
all right. So when it comes to developing curriculum, the way this works is actually we operate in a box. The state sets the standards, and we have to meet the state standards in order to get funding, right? So we can't just go off in whatever direction we want if we want to maintain our accreditation and get funding from the state. The way the curriculum is developed within Huron Valley is, we have curriculum directors, we have teacher leaders, they get together, they come up with the course offerings. It's quite an involved process. And then at the end of the day, we're trusting our individual teachers to deliver that curriculum professionally. That's what we hired them for, right? Now, I fundamentally trust our teachers in Huron Valley. We have very good teachers, and I think as a community, in my experience with my kids who are in the district, I think what they teach does a good job of representing our values as a district from what I've seen. Now, when it comes to things like removing materials from class, I'll tell you, there are books that I've seen people on the right want to remove from class, like the book Night, which I read in high school, and people on the left want to remove To Kill a Mockingbird, which I also read in high school. I'm opposed to both of those things, right? We need to be able to present age-appropriate instruction to our children about the topics they are going to deal with in the real world, and that includes sometimes uncomfortable topics.
Thank you. And I take that back. You don't get the last word because Amy Grzykowski gets the last word. All right. Amy's response is the Board of Education should be taking an active role in curriculum, and the Huron Valley School Board does this through the Teaching, Learning, and Technology Subcommittee. Concerns about specific curriculum, like CRT, are addressed in this committee. The committee does not act alone. Educators are also reviewing curriculum and can raise concerns as well. And this has been a standard practice. Regarding book banning, I am an avid reader. Amy continues, I love books, but I believe that our books should be age appropriate. We would never give a kindergartner a calculus book and say, learn this math. No, we provide books that are age appropriate and talk about topics that are healthy for their mental and social development. Regarding parental concerns, I believe that the proper channels should be addressed: teacher, principal, coach team, and then the board. Addressing concerns is part of a healthy relationship with parents and the district, but it's also important to have a clear picture for a civil dialogue. All right. It is now 8:16. We will re-adjourn here at 8:26 and take a brief 10-minute break And then we will be back with questions from parents, a student, and a teacher. All right, welcome back. Hope that was a quick break, and I think we're on time. I would like to again thank the Optimist Club of Huron Valley. Rose D'Ambrosia is the current president, and thank you, Rose, for bringing the cookies and the refreshment out front. The Huron Valley Optimist Club is the largest service club in the Huron Valley School District. They started just 8 years ago in 2014, have over 50 members, and do all sorts of great community projects that benefit students and the community. And if you want more information, they are out front. It's a great organization. So thank you, Optimist Club, for partnering with us. All right. We are going to go to a student, a parent, and a teacher question. So I'm going to turn it back over to Nancy and Cindy and take over.
All right. This first question that I'm going to ask you is from a student. In fact, Maya Azato, this is the student. And the title she put here was Student Input and Consideration. So here's the question. How do you plan to ensure that you are considering student perspectives and voices while serving as a school board member in our district? And I believe we start with Denise.
We start with Denise.
That's me. Well, apropos, I love the students that we serve. Of course, I've spent my life serving public education, and children are the focal point of everything we do here in Huron Valley Schools, and their input is important. I listen to everything kindergarten says to me. I could figure out most of it, and took it to heart in my art classroom. We do have student leaders from all 4 of our high schools, and they participate in board subcommittee meetings, teaching, learning, and technology. And during COVID, the last couple of years, they were crucial for us to understand the mental health of kids, the academic health of kids, and what they were thinking about, and some of the proposals they gave us, and some we instituted, and some we didn't, but we always listened. And I ran the ad hoc committee last year. I was the chair of the arts activities and athletic committee, and we took a ton of student input to see, exactly what they liked doing at school, what they didn't like, what they could use more of. And they all said that they could use more input for clubs, and they need club sponsors. They need teacher sponsors for those. And, we didn't turn any of their ideas away, and we'll be using those during our strategic plan. So thank you, kids.
Thank you. I'm going to read Amy's response next. We have leadership programs in all of our high schools to help with student input. However, I don't believe it's sufficient. As a board, we cannot always do what students want, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have a feedback loop for policies and issues that students are experiencing. At each board meeting, there is a time for public comment where students may come and address concerns they may have. The public portion is not a dialogue, although it is an avenue. The board dialogues are a great place to come and have a conversation. Beyond this, I know that every board member would appreciate student emails or phone calls. Normally, the president responds for the entire board, but the correspondent allows us as board members to know students' opinions and provide input at our committee meetings. Debbie, answer to the good question from the student.
Yep, very good question. I would say that probably one of the greatest joys in my whole life is having conversations with kids. My own grandkids, the kids in my church, kids all around. The voices that come from them, the ideas, all of those things that are such wonderful, bright, smart things, they should have a voice at the table along with all of anybody else. I think that one of the things is to disregard a child and their ideas and their opinions or their thoughts about something is probably as harmful to them as any other thing. So we just need to have them be a part of decision-making as a whole.
Carol?
I think listening to people, students, adults, children, is really important. You find out a lot of information, especially about kids, because they're not afraid to say whatever they want to say. They will generally tell you what they're thinking and what they think you should do. I know I have 8 grandchildren from 13 to a year old. I had to think for a minute. But anyway, they're pretty good at communicating what it is they want, and I'm pretty good at giving into it. That's not necessarily to say I'm going to give into everything, but it's good to have a dialogue and a conversation with people, including adults, to find out exactly what it is they think, what they're looking for in their schools or in their district, and how best to work together to solve it. The strategic planning committee was something that was input when I was back, that was started when I was back in the board. We did a lot of things and listened to a lot of different opinions and facts about issues that were going on in the schools or ways we can improve it with technology and so on. So I believe it's really important to listen to what people have to say. After all, you are the community and your kids are important to us.
Joe?
So the question really comes down to, how do you ensure that students' voices are heard? And the answer is really simple. It's by talking to them, empowering them, and doing more than just a pass the test mentality. So when you actually talk to the students, you have to empower that voice to be meaningful. And Amy mentioned in her response the feedback loop. In the business I'm in, you can't do anything without finding out if it actually worked. And that's, it can be condensed to something like a website. If you put it out there, are people using it the way it's supposed to be used? So our students are the users of the education we're giving them. We need to make sure that it was relevant and meaningful to them at every level, not just K through 12, but also even our pre-K kids. Make sure that they were happy while they were in school. Were they engaged? Were the teachers making relevant connections to them? And another question is, how will I make sure I stay in touch with them? Well, I've got 3 kids in the district right now, and I've got 3 nephews that are going through the district. One just graduated from Milford this year. So I've been hearing their voices a lot over the years, and consistently what they mention to me is the most valuable lessons they learn in school is how the teachers care for them, and then empowering the teachers to share their voice back up, and then finding the gaps between what the board said their experience should be and what their actual experience is, and addressing that in a proactive and meaningful way, as opposed to just, well, you're kids. Well, that's not it. They're our customers, and we need to make sure that they're getting what we're supposed to be getting.
Great. Michelle?
Yep. I think the students' perspective and voices are very important. By listening to them and engaging with them, and it forces that the district cares about them and that we respect them. We can learn a lot if we just listen to their perspective.
Okay. Becky?
First of all, I would like to say hi to Maya. She was my student 2 years ago in class. So thank you. Hi.
You're allowed to do that.
Okay. I saw her 2 weeks ago at the board meeting, and I was very proud of her for being up there and speaking in front of the board. It's so heartwarming to see our students up there, especially ones that were my kids. So that being said, students are our clients here. That is our business. So we need more perspectives and voices. The student committee that was there is great to have, and it's a great perspective. But to be honest and fair, they are student council presidents, senior class members. They are A-level students. They're our best and their brightest. We need more input. We need diverse populations. We need low-performing students' input, low economic, diverse ethnicities, LGBTQ+, and special needs. We need all grade levels. I have kids in this district as well, just like most of us up here, and it is important that we get all of this feedback from all of these different groups so we can be welcoming, accommodating, and grow.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Yes, thank you. Regarding student input and my perspective, or accepting a student's perspective on something, as she just said, currently we do have our high school students that sit with us on committee and we get their input. But I think the best way for a board member to get input is to actually, when I visit a building or a classroom, the children are not shy. They will definitely share with you some of their interests, especially when they know what your job is. I do believe today we serve pizza from local pizza places, and that really came as an idea from some of our students. But I have to agree with the last comment that we need to include more of our students from all walks of Huron Valley. So out of the mouths of babes, that's what you have to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob, please.
Yes, thank you. How will I consider student input in decision-making? Our primary goal here is the education of the students. So that's one of the most important factors, is how are they receiving the education that we are offering to them? So there's many avenues that we take, as were already mentioned, with the school, the seniors attending the board meetings and having input there. But like Becky said, I think we need to broaden that to a more diverse and broaden that to a more age diverse group. We need to work with the kids to see what best practices we have that are working to further their education. One of the, as you kind of alluded to, one of the if you have a hard question that you have expect a hard answer to, when you ask a child, you're going to hear the truth whether you like it or not. So out of the mouths of babes, I think, is the better way of saying it. But so, and the other thought I had is what you teach in one generation is going to become your leaders in the next. So we have to ensure that what we're teaching them is preparing them for the next. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, so I have, I've mentioned earlier, I have a daughter at Heritage. I actually have 3 kids, and I'm going to be getting very personal feedback on how we're doing at Huron Valley Schools for the next 18 years. And so the first place I'll go is to the breakfast table. And I would share some feedback from my 7-year-old daughter. She shared with me that if she could change one thing about school, she would cancel recess and spend more time inside doing schoolwork. I don't think she would win an election at Heritage Elementary. But, you know, I think we do a decent job of this. I think Jacob alluded to, you know, at the last board meeting, they had student leaders who spoke at the board meeting and being in touch with them. And other people up here have talked about, you know, the one thing we need to make sure we're doing is make sure that we're talking to communities who are maybe not always heard from, right? I mean, the people who tend to speak up tend to be the people with the most resources. And so we want to make sure we get the voices of, you know, kids from families that have less money or less opportunities, and that we're hearing that as well, I think, is very, very important. So, but that, you know, that's really, I think, what we need to do is make sure we're hearing from everyone.
Ben?
Yeah, we got to listen to kids. That's what we need to do. I think it's not Becky. It is. Yes, it is Becky. Excellent. The way she put it was, we got to get more kids involved. But I think one important point that we need to keep in mind is it's not just the class presidents, the senior class presidents, or the student council presidents. Those, you know, we're talking about older kids, much closer, much more developed, much more able to discuss issues. How do we get the middle schoolers who are maybe more socially awkward? How do we get feedback from elementary school that a lot of people, a lot of adults might discount out of hand, but could be somewhere in what they're saying a kernel of truth or something deeper that as an adult maybe we're just overlooking? How we get that engagement out of kids that aren't currently you know, they're not in student council, they're not a senior in high school. We actually make changes when they recommend something. It could be small. It could be, I'm not saying get rid of recess, but it could be, it could be just something small, some incremental gain. And when students see that the things they're bringing up are actually happening, more people are going to be encouraged to step up and request things or come forward with complaints or ideas. And as those things happen and there's some explanation of why or why not these things are happening, we'll get more people to come in, and eventually you'll have a very robust student body that is across the school district really trying to communicate. Getting all that filtered to the school board is going to be difficult, but I highly recommend students to attend. Parents, bring your kids. Let's, you know, get them up in front and let's have a Q&A with the kids when they come to a school board meeting.
Cindy?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
May I make a comment regarding the last question? I think I have a few seconds left.
okay.
But the comment would go like this, that even though our student leadership represent, probably the brightest and the best of our kids, that they work in their high school positions and do surveys for us and bring back all that collated information to us. So we do get to hear the voices of everyone that belongs to the student council. I just wanted to make that clear because those kids work real hard for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cindy?
So this is a question from Huron Valley School teacher Jennifer Hollander. And Debbie, we're going to start with you on this one. Jennifer says, local teacher shortages in Oakland County and throughout the country are well documented. Hiring qualified substitute teachers is also an increasingly difficult task. With that background, what ideas do you have to positively impact the retention and hiring of qualified teachers and staff?
I believe that the field needs to be leveled in the pay and the subsidizing from government monies. I think that's first of all. I think we're in competition with other school districts, and maybe that causes us not to be able to get quality teachers. I'm sorry, I'm sort of stuttering through that. Maybe we need to get a little bit more creative. I have said that I drive in my car and Dr. Robert Livernoy from the Warren Consolidated School District is in my head all the time. And I think if I hear that and I can tell you his name, why are we not? So maybe we need to look at some more creative ways of advertising who we are to draw people into our district to be a part of it, and to subsidize them as well. I think I'm done. That might have been a fire alarm or something.
Okay. I think everything is okay, but all right. Thank you, Debbie. Carol?
To piggyback off what Debbie said, to look at our teachers across the state, they're very competitive in their pay. In other words, they're making they're making more than teachers like in up Western Michigan or maybe up in the UP. But if you compare them to Oakland County, they're actually making less than teachers in Oakland County. You can go to Birmingham schools, for instance, and Birmingham teachers make more than teachers here in Huron Valley. I think by increasing their pay and bringing them more on board and competitive would really help the situation in obtaining better teachers and more teachers and subs and parapros and all the other pieces that go into creating an educational environment that's conducive to all students. Getting creative works too, but how do you want to get creative? Do we want to give them a bonus? I'm not a proponent of bonuses, so don't anybody go off the wall here. Because I don't think that actually works in education. I believe that teachers give their all and they do their very best. And I think by increasing their pay and providing and really pushing the district for what a great district and community this is would help engage new teachers and bring them to our district.
Joseph, it is a difficult question in a very competitive Oakland County environment and in an environment where there is a teacher shortage. And so how do you attract and how do you keep staff and teachers?
It's a great question and something that is a little more than just relevant to teachers, but to the overall marketplace in general. Right now, I personally am having trouble hiring people at the pay levels I'm looking for because it is competitive out there, and people are looking for where can I get not just the best compensation, but the best treatment as a team member. And it's not just about where you work, but how they treat you when you're at work. So teachers are telling us every day exactly why they're leaving. It's not just the compensation angle. There's a lot more to it than that. It's about the job satisfaction. It's about the trust from the community. It's about being believed when they stand up and say, I need help, that people will actually hear them and go to help them. we perform exit interviews on our teachers, but we don't always get that information bubbled back up to why are our teachers leaving? What is the real meat and potatoes of the teacher shortage? I mean, I'll be honest with you, the starting pay for a teacher here in Huron Valley is just about $40,000 a year. And that is a low amount to get around $20 an hour when just cost of housing is about $20,000 a year. That is a hard job to make work. And you can only do it if you're passionate about it. But that only goes to so far until you reach things like burnout. And when you know the max you can make after 25 years is 80,000, which is nice, it takes 25 years to get there. I think all of us knowing that information now says maybe we should readdress how we pay our teachers, because if we lose them all, the schools go down.
Michelle?
Yep, this is actually one I researched a little on, so I'm very excited for this question. So this is a statewide issue. The Michigan Department of Education is actually encouraging former educators to come back to the profession by providing waivers to become recertified as teachers. Some other strategies that the state is doing is tuition reimbursement for current college students who commit to pursuing teaching. They're providing scholarships for high school students who commit to a career in education. They're offering loan repayment for recent college graduates who commit to a career in education and current teachers who are working to pay off college loans. As for our district, I think there's a couple things that we could look into. One would be an annual stipend for teachers certified by the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. Walled Lake District does this, and they provide $2,000 a year as long as the certification is valid. I think it would be something to look into to offer tuition reimbursement with an exchange for service. So provide a certain amount of money for their tuition as long as they commit to a certain number of years to the district.
Becky, your thoughts?
Teachers often leave districts for pay raises. We jump districts to get steps because oftentimes steps are frozen in a district. So one of the things that we can do for teacher retention is to ensure the value of our district. We need to cherish our teachers. We need to have that family feeling, that community feel. We also need to provide those resources for those teachers. Mental health, PD that feels relevant, not another thing to do in our schedule. And we need to ensure steps in our pay scale. We need to award those steps for our new hires. I left the district in March, so this is very relevant to me. I left for medical reasons. However, I had 15 years in teaching, 2 master's degrees, and I was making in the $50,000 range. So it's very personal. And when I left, no one came to me personally. Yes, I did an exit interview Google form, but no one came to me to talk to me about why I was leaving, would I consider staying, what else can we do? No one came to me. That was the number one trigger that made me want to run for the board. I want to make Huron Valley better for our teachers, for our students, and that whole community here.
All right, I'm going to read Amy Grzykowski's response. Attracting new teachers and retaining current staff is not easy. As one of the lowest funded school districts, we struggle with allocating enough funding for compensation. Even when we talk about a 5% increase, high for a collective bargaining agreement, on a $40,000 salary, this is only a $2,000 raise annually, or $38.46 a week pre-tax. Every little bit helps, but compounds over time. But as degreed professionals, is this enough? Amy asked a lot of questions about this topic. If salary cannot include more than 2 to 3% average collective bargaining agreement increase, where can we find additional ways to compensate? Fringe benefits is always a good place to look, more days off, or lower cost of health care, or even funding for training can retain staff and attract high qualified educators. Perhaps we can also compensate for longevity, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or reward educators that have additional certification. Regardless, we cannot just sit back and let good educators leave our district. The opportunity cost to attract, cultivate, and train new educators is truly too high. At the end of the day, we must keep advocating for our teachers. Lindsay?
Yes, thank you. Regarding retaining and keeping our qualified staff and encouraging new staff to come to Huron Valley, I believe, and I know compensation is certainly the big part of it right now. Unfortunately, over the years, Huron Valley, we've been a low subsidized district here in the county. However, we're beginning to catch up now, so hopefully we will have opportunities to be able to compensate our staff more, even with other options that might be available. In years past, we've kept our teachers here in Huron Valley because they like Huron Valley. And I think they deserve only the best. And if compensation is part of it, we need to dig in and really look for ways in the budget to compensate our staff and encourage others to go to school. That would be my response. Thank you.
Jacob?
Yes, thank you. As has been stated, HVS teachers are one of the lowest paid in our area. If you look at Walled Lake or South Lyon, they receive a fair amount more pay. So that sets us up with one difficulty that we have to overcome right at the beginning. And I've spoken with a few teachers, and it seems to be, at least the ones I've spoken with, they said morale is lower than it's been in, one person said 20-something year career. So I think part of our problem is the environment. They're not feeling appreciated, they're not feeling heard and listened to. So if we can create an atmosphere that is more healthy, then I think we won't have teachers ready to jump ship just for a couple, not that it's a small amount, but just for a few $1,000s more. So getting creative with the way we are able to compensate teachers is definitely one thing I would like to see. Promoting a healthier and more productive Huron Valley schools altogether, paying teachers more, and paraprofessionals as well. I know their starting pay is around $12 and change an hour, and we're asking them to work with, in often cases they're in the special needs classroom and they're maybe getting hit, spit on, yelled at, and their compensation is very low. So it's difficult to retain good staff when you're not showing them appreciation. I have so much more to say about this, but I see that red flag. So tune in online and get the rest.
It is what it is. Okay. Ryan?
Yeah, this is actually kind of in a way, a personal issue for me. So my mom was a Huron Valley teacher for 20 plus years. And I can remember, I don't know exactly how long ago it was, maybe a decade, when our teachers took a huge pay cut, right? When Michigan was going through hard times, I think during the Great Recession. And so they were willing to do that in order to help keep our district fiscally solvent. And I think we need to turn around now that we've got the bond is relieving some budgetary pressure and the increased funding from the state. We need to turn around and see what we can do to pay back our longtime educators to help make up for that increase. Because that wasn't just a one-year cut, right? It took a decade for my mom to get back to her previous salary level. Now, it's been mentioned that this is not a Huron Valley only issue, but that it's particularly acute here. I didn't check all the directions, so I didn't check Holly, but if you go, Walled Lake, we pay less, South Lyon, we pay less, Heartland, we pay less. So it's not just Oakland County schools, right? We pay less than school districts in Livingston County. I agree with other people who've said, well, teacher compensation is a huge thing, but it's more than just that. We need to make sure that our teachers are respected as the highly educated professionals that they are, right? And so those two things combined, I think, will help with this. But it's not going to be an easy problem to solve.
Ben?
Quick, I think educators uniquely and by and large go into the profession due to their passion to teach, their passion to help kids. They want to be educators and make the world a better place. I think a lot of schools take advantage of that by things like not freezing steps or starting out with low pay, taking 10 years to get up to some sort of competitive pay, and they burn those teachers out. And they do it because they know they can. Teachers get burnt out, they jump ship, they quit the profession because Walmart is offering more money to stock shelves than they're currently making as a teacher or a support staff. We are in a unique position at Huron Valley. we get of course, increased state funding. We've got a bond to help out with some other issues that we can redirect funds towards our salaries. But if we wanted to pass more money for our teachers in Huron Valley, we couldn't just have a millage. We have to go to a countywide vote and put it to everyone. And then we're asking these school districts that already make much more money and have much more per pupil funding, we have to ask them to vote to tax themselves higher to bring us up a little bit too. And that's going to be a very difficult sell, but it's not impossible. There's also the American Recovery Plan that there's funds involved in that we can get for our schools, that we can free up some of our budget to pay more for teachers. I think it was mentioned 85% of our budget goes towards salaries right now. So we're not going to do it by rearranging. We're not going to reshuffle the chairs on a Titanic. We've got to figure out a way to get more funding, and we've got to make teachers know that they're appreciated.
Denise?
Good segue. All of the above, all of the above. I mean, the main reason we have teacher shortages here in Michigan and nationwide is because inadequate funding at both the state and the federal level. At both the state and federal level. I mentioned before that Proposition A was our funding mechanism and the model in which we fund our schools. Every student, receives a certain amount of money, and we go from there. This year, Governor Whitmer and along with our legislator passed an historic budget, which brought up our per pupil foundation grant up to $450. About 11 years ago, Governor Snyder took $470 in one fell swoop away from our school budget. And that's when the teacher, the EA, the Education Association, took pay cuts so that we could continue to provide the programming for our students. The structure of funding in our schools these days is broken. Again, we now have $9,150 to teach our students. We have a big increase in special education costs, which are quite expensive, and that's above the 9150 mark up to 28% more. Of course, we have to build a culture of collaboration and respect for our professionals in the classroom. We give lip service to that, and I think in Huron Valley we really try to appreciate all of our teachers, but there's a real pile on these days for what our teachers do, and we have to address not only the mental health issues of our students, but also the mental health issues of our teachers. We need them. We need our teachers.
Yeah, so everybody has had an opportunity to respond to that. We're going to move on to our next question.
Okay. This is our final parent question. And this is, it's candidate financial donations from outside groups is the title that's here. And it's been submitted by Kristen Denman, who is a parent. Michigan does not allow school boards to be partisan. Having said that, have you already, or would you accept financial donations from a group that tends to lean partisan?
All right, I'm going to provide Amy's answer first. Amy's Grzykowski's response is, campaigns are expensive. Yes, I am accepting donations from anyone. I have received contributions from one individual, nonpartisan, and a partisan political action committee. Neither of these contributions will even cover my campaign expenses. That's Amy's response. Carol?
Well, I haven't accepted money from anyone for my campaign. I'm paying it for it myself, and I don't plan to spend a lot. It wasn't that much anyway before when I ran. It has increased since then. But I'm not sure what type of donations you're talking about, whether it's to me running as a school board member or whether it's to the board in general for schools. Oh, I'm rattling myself, sorry. I'm not quite sure what that question is. Is it a donation for me, for one of the board members running, or is it a donation to the board itself towards
No,
a
it's
school?
the question is regarding you as an individual
No,
board member.
I wouldn't. I don't support one, and I'm supporting myself. But can I add something that on what Denise said? If you compare, she talked about proposal A. If you compare us to Birmingham schools, based on the elementary level, it starts at about $10,000 per pupil, maybe a little more. Last I looked, high school students get $17,000 per pupil. In proposal A, they were held harmless, so they could pass millages, where other school districts that were within a lower budget, like 6,000, I think I had when I started this on the school board, we couldn't pass a millage to increase our per student count. So that has a big impact on what we can do for our students.
Yes, it does. Yes, and that's a very good point. Yes. All right, Joseph?
So the question was about campaign financial disclosures and would you receive funds from a clearly partisan area or action committee. So as many of you know, I've been endorsed by the MEA, which is the Michigan Education Association, which represents our teachers. That endorsement came with a lot of benefits, and one of them is a small donation. And I'm happy to accept that donation because it represents the teachers having faith that I will be a voice for their concerns. I don't view that as a partisan issue because teachers aren't teaching partisan issues, they are teaching nonpartisan issues, human behaviors, rights, privileges, everything that comes with being a citizen. And representing those teachers and demonstrating that I want to work with them, I think is a benefit. As far as any other person, happy to accept donations from anybody watching or in the, or even take a sign. The signs are not cheap, as said before. And finally, the last piece of it is, would I accept anything from a clearly partisan area? And the answer is absolutely not. So if a Republican came to my door and said, will you accept this money? I would say no. A Republican group or a Democratic group, I would say no, and I won't put a clearly Republican or Democrat sign in my yard because I don't want to demonstrate anything but nonpartisanship in this election.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yep. Like Amy said, it's very expensive to run a campaign. I actually had no idea until I got into it and I bought the signs and I was like, it's what? How much? Yeah. So would I accept donations? Absolutely. I would. And whether you're Democrat, Republican, I don't care. You know, we need the help to get our name out there and to just run our campaign. I've been blessed with many donations from family and friends. So everyone that's donated, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you very, very much.
Becky?
Thank you, Mom and Dad, for my only donation.
I think that's the best answer all night. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Venmo at Becky L. Zimmerman if you would like to. No, I'm kidding. I also have signs in my car. Meet me in the lot. No, seriously though, I have not accepted any donations aside from my parents who are happy to support me. I have not aligned myself with anyone who is not like-minded of myself, but I have not had the opportunity or been approached by anyone who is any kind of partisan anything. So I definitely believe that, you know, my values are, you know, I have friends and aligned and all that with the same people, same values. I don't think Democrat, Republican, liberal, I don't think in those terms. My focus is our school district, our kids, and whether or not we're here for the school.
Lindsay?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to thank our Huron Valley Education Association for their endorsement. Other than that, I've accepted no monies toward my campaign. I'm running a very modest one, and everything's coming out of my pocket. Thank you.
Jacob?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to my son for being so well behaved out there tonight. He's such a doll. But yes, there you go. He really wanted to clap, so thank you. I would accept donate. I've spent way more than I anticipate I would receive in any donations, but I'd happily accept donations from anybody. I actually sought out one from, I believe it was the Huron Valley Education Association, but they denied me. And I did check, and it looks like the MEA is about 98% donors are strictly Democrat, so I would say that's pretty partisan. But apparently I didn't fit their bill. But I did get a donation from the Republican Party, which I put towards signage. And beyond that, it's just been family and neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, as other people have said, y'all don't know how expensive this is. It was a lot more than I anticipated. So I'm also proud to be endorsed by our local teachers and educators through the HVEA. And so through that, I've accepted a donation. Otherwise, I've got no donations from any partisan groups, just community members. And then self-funding is how I'm funding the campaign.
Your turn, Ben.
I am self-funded. The only donations I'm looking for is a piece of your lawn about this big so I can stick a sign in it. But if someone was going to donate, which I'm actually not accepting really, but if I had to, I would definitely lean towards people that have my values and think like me and want to see improvements in education, improvements in teacher salaries, improvements in student safety, and regardless of which way they lean, if they had those same values as me, I would happily accept a donation.
Okay, just want to correct one misconception on our local HVEA and our MEA and our NEA, Michigan Education Association, National Education Association. There is a misconception that it's a Democratic group. It is a nonpartisan group. Many of our teachers fall in the category of Republican, Democrat, Independent. We don't ask those kind of questions of one another normally. So I'm proud of my MEA endorsement, and I'm proud of the funds they're giving me for this very expensive campaign. 4 years ago when I ran, nobody cared. Now a lot of people care, and I'm grateful for, everybody up here that wants to serve the public. I appreciate that, and I will accept donations from anyone that values public education and values an equal education for all of our students, an equitable education. So, I like to be endorsed by public educators and public education folks.
Okay.
Can I just go back to the last question really quick? I just want to say that whole little beep threw me a little. I didn't want to insinuate at all that we do not have highly qualified teachers within the Huron Valley School District. It sort of sounded in my head as I replay it like it sounded, and I didn't mean that at all. But I have gotten not one penny from anyone, and I don't intend to. This is all me, not even my mom. My mom and dad can't give me any more money.
No, they can't give you any
Well,
more.
they're gone, so.
Sorry about that.
So, yeah, but you know what? That doesn't stop me at all from still wanting to be a voice for every single child and teacher moving forward, so.
Great. This has moved along rather well, and I'm going to deviate a little bit from our plan here since we've progressed ahead of schedule. So I hope you appreciate the questions that have been presented to you, and I hope as the attendees tonight, you have been able to learn a little bit about each one of these candidates. And even though Shannon and Amy are not here, I am going to ask, and I'm going to start down here with Becky. Okay? I'm going to start down here with Becky because the last letter, you are first in many ways, right?
Okay.
Right. Okay. I'm going to give everybody the opportunity to for 90 seconds as a wrap up here, and we'll conclude this evening's forum. Tell everybody here and who is viewing why they should vote for Becky Zimmerman as a Board of Education member going forward. And I pose that question to each of you. Becky?
Okay, I'm prepared. I love being an active member in our community, so supporting our student groups, community groups, our local church, Girl Scouts, shopping local, you name it. I'm here, I'm around, I know your kids from being a current HVS parent, a former HVS teacher, and my dance teaching business with the Huron Valley Rec. So I may have taught your children dance or math. I was there during quarantine teaching on the computer while my child did kindergarten in the next room on a computer. I was there in the classroom through masks and partitions, teaching students math who were struggling emotionally, socially, but I was told we needed to keep pace. I was there, as I mentioned, in that room full of 11th graders when we heard the news of Oxford. I was there with my colleague crying, as I mentioned earlier, and I was there during all of this, and I will continue to be there as the person with the most firsthand experience in our schools right now with our students, staff, and the whole picture over the most epic 3 years in public education we have seen probably in our lifetimes. Thank you for your consideration.
Michelle?
My turn. Yep. I'm very passionate about the quality of education our kids receive. If I'm elected, I will challenge and question administration to make sure the decisions being made are in the best interest of the students and teachers. I'll listen to all members of our community and base my decisions on what will provide our kids a quality education. Again, I think my responsibilities as an estimator and purchaser qualify me to evaluate the financial expenditures and budget practices, and I'm committed to doing what's right for our students, parents, and staff.
Joseph?
This is a great curveball. Thank you for this. So, closing statements. So, thank you so much, everybody, for coming at all. Like, taking time out of your evening and giving it to this shows that you're vested in our community's success, just like all of us up here today. Hopefully, this venue gave you the opportunity to see the difference between each of us and how our mentalities to approaching problems in constructive, new, and interesting ways, how that applies to the problems we're facing today and will face in the future. I ran for this position for many, many reasons. Not just that I have 3 kids here, not that I went here, not that I have nephews here, not that I have a parapro sister-in-law who works here. It's because of the students themselves. And I feel like we have an opportunity to demonstrate back to them our commitment that every one of them matters, and to show that as more than just words, but actual action by preventing bullying actions, by preventing things that harm how students grow and learn. I think that we can do better as a community because deep down inside, this community wants to be awesome. I know that because I've lived here my whole life. For 10 years, my mother was the supervisor of Highland Township. So I know about the engagement layer of the town, and I want to earn your vote so I can keep showing every bit of investment teachers gave in me back to the community every day.
I chose to run for school board for a variety of reasons, a lot of them actually. I worry every day when my grandkids go to school here in this district. I worry every day when my daughter, who teaches in a different district, goes to work. And every time there is a school shooting or a school situation, I wonder if it's my kid. So I understand how the teachers feel when they're put in that position and how the kids are afraid every day to go to school, because I hear it from my other daughter who tells me she's afraid to send her kids to school. I have faith in this district. I've lived here for 27 years. I used to come out here when I was a kid, and I lived in Dearborn. So I spent a lot of time in the Milford area, and it always impressed me. I was intrigued by the property, the acreage, the small town feel. That's what I like about this town. And I think that we have the school district that can make the biggest difference in the community. And I'm going to quote a Bob O'Brien saying, as goes the schools, as goes the community, so goes the schools. Our community is important, and so are the kids that we teach every day here in this district. We are creating the leaders of this country, and they are going to make a big impact on our world.
Debbie?
Well,
your last 90 seconds.
my last 90 seconds, thankfully. So, I'm running for the school board. I decided to run for the school board because I truly, deeply believe that every child, regardless of their circumstances, deserves the same quality education. I have 7 grandkids, 6 of which are in 6 different schools in the district. So I have a vested interest in each and every one of them. And I believe that I have the skills. I believe that my role as a school board member will be to work as a team member, to help set standards of excellence going forward. I believe we can do the work to be the best there is.
I do have a bio that when Amy sent me her question, she did add this, so I'm going to read this on behalf of Amy. As a mother of 4, I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in business from Oakland University, and I'm employed by the Western Oakland Transportation Association as their human resources and marketing manager. I care deeply about the community and the Huron Valley School District. For the last 18 years, I have volunteered with the district and local community organizations, participating in classroom support for teachers, parent-teacher association leadership, CW3 soccer board, and one of the co-chairs of the successful passage of the bond and sinking fund ballot proposal. I am running for a board trustee position to continue the work I started when I was appointed in January of this year as a member of the Board of Education. The last 7 months have been a time of learning, growth, study, and participating as a board member. I ask for your support to continue my work.
All right, thank you. Well, I have deep roots in this community. My husband and I moved to the Milford area. We love the area and the scenery and the landscape and the people in our community. We've lived here for 40 years. We've re-raised our 3 daughters here. They went through Huron Valley schools. I bleed public education. I've dedicated my life to public service as a volunteer in the schools, as a paraprofessional teaching at-risk children, teaching after-school classes to our adult special ed population. And finally, I went back to school, got my teaching certificate in art education, K-12. And I love teaching every one of those grades, landed in elementary school art for 22 years, have a degree in educational leadership. I chose to stay in the classroom and also to be a teacher leader as the president of the Education Association. It was there that I really got a great deep understanding of the system of public education, and that's an important skill and knowledge to have if you're going to be a school board member representing our community, our children, and our parents. I am a collaborator. I work well with one another. I am a good listener. I want to continue the good work that I've been working through for the last 4 years. We've had rough times during COVID, and we're coming out of that. I look forward to our strategic plan and all the ideas that our community and teacher task force worked on last year, and I'm really excited to serve another term, so I hope you vote for me.
Ben?
I've got 3 kids that go to Huron Valley schools, but even if I didn't have 3 kids that go to Huron Valley schools, I'm still think good education and good schools make for a good community. And that's what I want. I want a better society. I want a better community for us. And I think by emphasizing and supporting teachers and support staff for them and doing more small incremental changes, little improvements build up over time, we can have fantastic schools. And I'm willing to put the work in, and I'm dedicated and I'm passionate, and I want to be a change for good. And I promise my wife wouldn't say this, but I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they have inside.
Ryan, top that.
It's impossible to top that.
It's impossible? Well, take a crack at it.
All right. So, I mean, the number one reason I'm running is that this is my home, right? I was raised in Milford and Highland. I mentioned earlier I graduated MHS class of 01. And I've lived a lot of different places in the United States, but my wife, Jane, and I moved back here in 2019 because we know that this is a really great community with great schools where we wanted to raise our family. And so, you know, for me, this is really personal. As I mentioned, this is my home. This is where I'm choosing to raise my kids. I've got 3 of them. So, you know, as a board member, every decision that I help make is something I'm willing to live with until I'm practically 60. And so, you know, I have a lot of skills too. I have a diverse background. I've done business, technology, the arts. I was actually an English and theater major in undergrad before I realized I couldn't make any money. And so I've started businesses, I balance budgets. I'm really looking to bring, to keep things going, but also to bring new opportunities and come up with fresh ideas for our kids. I also have a big heart and an open mind, and as your board member, I will always strive to communicate clearly with the community and represent you all with dignity on the board. And you can trust that any decision I make is only focused on doing what I believe is best for your kids and my kids. And so that's why on November 8th, I am asking you to vote Dolly for the Valley.
All right. Jacob?
Yes, thank you. I'm here because I'm a servant. I volunteered to serve this country in the military, and now I'm volunteering to serve our community. I'm here because my son is starting school next year, and I want to have a say in the education that he receives. I'd like to thank everybody again for this opportunity. Special thanks to the Milford Spinal Column and to the Optimist Club, as well as my fellow candidates for attending and sharing their visions for Huron Valley Schools. Though there are clearly things we disagree on, I'm glad we had this opportunity here tonight to discuss the issues that matter most with the people they affect the most. Folks, we're just over a month away from Election Day, and my message to you is this. Parents, I believe in you. I believe you know what is best for your children, and I want to work with you to help guide our curriculum. Having that child has been the greatest joy of my life, but it's also filled me with a tremendous amount of responsibility. And it's because of that very sense of responsibility that I believe we owe it to our children to send them to a safe school for a quality education and a fighting chance in tomorrow's competitive workforce. I believe today's actions are weighed on tomorrow's scales. And if you agree with me on the core central principles, I'd like you to vote for Jacob Dimmick on November 8th. Thank you.
All right, one more.
Well,
Lindsay, why should people vote for you?
People should vote for me because I guess I'm a career educator. I'm not a politician. I was in the classroom here in Huron Valley for 25 years. I spent the next 10 as a principal in our elementary building. Following my retirement, a few years later, I was appointed to the school board and then ran 2 more successful campaigns. So I was in service for 9 years. Right in the middle of the bond and the millage election, we lost a board member, so I was reappointed at that time. And now that we have the bond has been supported by our community, and we have the BSSF millage, we're doing great things in our schools. Likewise, nobody saw what was going to happen 3 years ago with COVID. So we've come out of that now, and I'm running for a 2-year position because I feel like my job isn't done yet. We're just going into strategic planning. Last year, we completed the task force, and I want to look forward for only the best for Huron Valley. I need to take care of our teachers, and I've always been an advocate for all kids. That's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I think this has gone well. I hope we provided you a good venue and you learned a lot this evening about these candidates. It is important that you vote, either early ballot or to vote on election day. Tell your friends, your families to vote because it is a right and a privilege that we have, and we need to carry through on that because it is part of our democracy that we have the privilege to vote. I would like to thank Nancy and Cindy from our staff. I appreciate your thank you to those people that are watching online for reading the Spinal Column. The content that we create is only local. One of the things that is our priority is covering the school district, the students, the teachers, the issues, and the only things that are in our products are the things that are going on in our communities. And that's why advertisers support the paper, because they know the content is there that you want to read. So for that, I thank Nancy and Cindy, and I just get out of their way on a week-to-week basis and just have them to tell me what's important and what needs to go in. So on behalf of all of you, thank you very much for running. Good luck to each of you, and thank you very much, and good evening.